Imagine this. You turn on your kitchen tap, fill up a glass with water that costs you almost nothing, and drink it without thinking twice. For thousands of years, people have seen clean water as a basic human right, something that belongs to everyone. But what if I told you that one giant company has spent decades turning free water into something you have to buy back at 1,000 times the price? That company is Nestlé. They have become some of the most powerful water barons in the world by taking control of springs and underground water that used to belong to local communities. In this video, we're going to show you exactly how Nestlé did it, how much money they make, and why your bottle of water might be costing towns and rivers more than you ever realized. To understand the problem, let's first look at how water is supposed to work. For most of history, water was treated as a public resource. Governments and towns managed rivers, lakes, and underground springs so everyone could use them. Taking water from nature and putting it in bottles is not as simple as it looks. According to the U.S. Geological Survey and EPA reports, it takes about 3 liters of water to make just 1 liter of bottled water. That's because you need extra water for cleaning, filtering, and running the factory. Then you have to add plastic bottles, transportation, and storage. So real bottled water should cost more than tap water, but not thousands of times more. Yet the global bottled water business is now worth around $350 billion every year. Nestlé is the biggest player in that business. They own dozens of brands like Poland Spring, Arrowhead, Perrier, and Pure Life. For many years, they have been allowed to pull millions of gallons from public springs while paying almost nothing in return. So what changed everything? It was smart marketing. Starting in the 1970s and 80s, big companies ran ads that made people scared of tap water. They convinced us that bottled water was cleaner, safer, and healthier. The numbers show how fast this took off. In 1976, the average American drank only about 1 gallon of bottled water per year. By 2022, that number jumped to more than 45 gallons per person. That is a massive increase. Globally, demand for bottled water has grown over 500% in the last 20 years. This huge new demand created a problem. Clean fresh water is limited. During California's big drought between 2012 and 2016, Nestlé was still taking around 80 million gallons of water per year from one spring, even while the state asked regular families to cut their water use by up to 25%. When demand explodes but supply stays the same, the price goes up and powerful companies see a chance to make huge profits. Now we get to the darkest part of the story. Nestlé didn't use guns or violence like a cartel. Instead, they used lawyers, lobbyists, and clever legal tricks to take control of water sources that belong to the public. Here's how they do it. They find a clean spring, then make long-term deals with local governments that let them pump water for almost no money. In Evart, Michigan, Nestlé pays only about $200 to $250 per year for the right to take up to 1.5 million gallons per day. That is cheaper than most families pay for their monthly water bill. When towns or citizens try to fight back, Nestlé often takes them to court. In parts of Canada, they kept pulling water from areas near indigenous communities even during droughts. A former Nestlé CEO, Peter Brabeck, once said in a public interview that water is not a human right. He believes it should be privatized and sold at market prices. Real stories have come out in reports from The Guardian and Reuters. In Pennsylvania and California, towns discovered that their local springs had been quietly signed over to Nestlé with almost no public discussion. Once the contracts are signed, it becomes very hard for anyone to stop them. So why don't governments shut this down? Here's the plot twist. Many local leaders actually welcome Nestlé. The company brings jobs and some tax money to small towns that need the economy boost. In exchange, Nestlé gets cheap access to water. Big supermarkets and stores also love it because bottled water has crazy profit margins, sometimes over 1,000%. You pay $2 or $3 for a bottle that costs the company just a few cents. The customer feels they are buying something pure and convenient. The company makes billions. The only real loser is the local community that loses long-term control over its own water. Governments often look the other way because taking on a giant like Nestlé would mean losing jobs and facing expensive legal battles. Everyone in the chain makes money, except the people whose water is slowly being turned into someone else's private business. The good news is you are not powerless. The simplest thing you can do is stop buying single-use bottled water when your tap water is safe. Get a reusable bottle and a cheap home filter. It will save you money and reduce plastic waste. You can also look up where your city gets its water and support leaders who want to protect water as a public resource instead of letting companies privatize it. Let me ask you, after watching this, will you think twice the next time you reach for a bottle of water? Tell me in the comments, have you ever suspected that bottled water is way more expensive than it should be? If you enjoyed learning the hidden economics behind everyday things, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.